ahead everyone, and welcome back to my kitchen. So for this episode we are going to be doing our own takes on some of the recipes from FANGAI'ÅSE, our cookbook. And today I wanted to do a little meal prep for breakfast tomorrow. Now, one of my favorite dishes in the world is our scaldo. Growing up, my Lolo and Lola would make it for me, but just, you know, the traditional way, a lot of ginger, a lot of rice, and just seasoning to taste. And I liked that garlicky, smooth, silky rice flavor. But today we're going to do some oats scaldo. So here I have a cup of oats. I have some veggie broth that we'll be using to thicken up the oats to give it that consistency, that traditional our scaldo consistency. I also have 3 garlic cloves. These are just garlic cloves. I got them from Payless. And these bad boys have been growing this second lockdown, which is awesome. And I just keep them on my windowsill right there. So we'll be using very few ingredients. It's a really quick cooking time, and for the most part, it's a really simple recipe. So let's begin. So to start off, we're just gonna do some prep before we head to the stove. I'm just chopping 3 garlic cloves. Now, in my house, not everyone likes that garlicky flavor. I do, but you might want to just adjust the taste, just like any other recipe. So I'm just making sure I get the skins off of this garlic just by tapping it on the back of my knife. And I'm putting it in a compost pile. So I'm done mincing my garlic. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab my kitchen scissors and I'm going to snip off some green onions right here. Let's see. So I'm just gonna give these a rough chop as well. I like a lot of green onions because we're using ginger powder. We're not using fresh ginger. Because of the lockdown, we haven't really gone to the grocery store, which is a good thing, but we have no more fresh ginger in the pantries. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna head to the stove, start toasting our oatmeal and adding all the ingredients, and we'll start assembling. Here we have our pan on medium-high heat. I'm just adding some avocado oil. You can use any type of oil. Sometimes I use vegetable oil, but since I had avocado oil, I just put it in. And then we are going to get our garlic. We're just gonna add that in there. I'm just gonna get that going. You don't want the garlic to burn, so we're just gonna make sure that tosses around really quick. Just make sure it gets a little toasty. And you're just gonna add in your oats. Really simple. Now, to get the most out of the oat flavor, you're just gonna keep it on the stove until it gets nice and toasty. You'll start to smell it. You'll know. Just gonna spread that out. Let that sit there for a little bit and just make sure that it cooks evenly. Just stirring it occasionally, making sure that it gets that nice toasty flavor. Alright, so now that it's nice and toasted, I'm gonna start adding in the veggie broth. This is about 2 cups of veggie broth. Just add it in little by little. I can already smell the oats. It smells so good. Just letting that sit in there. Add a little bit more in. Now I'm just gonna let this sit here for 2 minutes until it thickens up, and when it's ready, we'll come back. So our oat scaldo has thickened up really nicely. It soaked up all the veggie broth. Oh my gosh, it smells really good. Now I'm just going to take some black pepper, just sprinkle over the top. We already added our ginger off camera, so just make sure that you add all your seasonings. Right when it's this consistency is when you want to take it out, before it gets too thick. So now that we have our oats prepared and ready, just place it into your bowl. very hot. Now sometimes if it's too thick, what I do is I take some of my leftover veggie stock and I just pour it over just to give it a little bit more of a soupy texture. And then it'll soak up all that vegetable broth as you're eating it as well. Then now I'm just going to garnish with some of the green onion. Put that there. And I have some calamansi from our tree outside. All you're going to do is you're going to slice them in half over, just squeeze. And then I also do half of a calamansi as a garnish in the middle. And we're done. So this is the OATSCALDO from our FANGAI'ÅSE cookbook. So now the moment of truth. Oh yeah, this really tastes just like our scaldo. This recipe was so easy and had very little ingredients, and most likely these ingredients are already in your pantry or in your refrigerator. And this flavor that's in this bowl, it's incredible. It's really reminiscent of the traditional dish, but a much healthier alternative. And if you're on the go in the morning, you can just whip this up really quickly. And it's a very comforting food. It's been raining a lot recently, so this is something that I know that I'll be going to quite a lot. And one thing that I like about this recipe is that there's so much room for adding ingredients. You can add ginger, you can have it without it, you can spice it up as much as you'd like, but it'll still taste so good. All the contributors in the cookbook made a bunch of these traditional recipes so accessible and much healthier for people who are going plant-based or going vegan or just trying to have a healthier lifestyle. I also think that it is such an easy recipe for anyone to get a hold of. These are basically pantry staples. I mean, I have oats in my pantry all the time, and a bunch of the herbs and a bunch of the spices. You should probably have these in your kitchen. And if not, they're very easy to switch out with other ingredients. And I'm gonna mention it again, it is so easy, and you really get that traditional avocado taste in such a full and healthy recipe. So the kadu that I'm making today is actually called the chunky vegetable soup in the cookbook FANGAI'ÅSE, and it definitely calls for like some staple ingredients. The beginning of the recipe calls for basically gisa, which means like saute in Chamorro, gisaing celery, carrots, onions, garlic, ginger, basically creating the base for all the flavors in the rest of your soup. So I have all of those ingredients, but I'm gonna be gradually adding in my local ingredients, which are pumpkin tips. These are actually picked from the yard outside. These grow pretty much like wild. They're a vine pumpkin. And then we have the actual pumpkin. It's a kabocha squash, which is called Calamansi in Chamorro. And then I have a local eggplant and some local wing beans. And my last ingredient is this really sad singular shiitake mushroom. So whoever gets that is the bonus. Other than that, just onions, garlic, and ginger. I'm gonna go get to prepping, chopping, all that, and then I will meet you back at the stove. So I'm beginning by first washing my veggies, giving it a nice little rinse in the sink, and then I'm going to take it over to the cutting board, starting with my onions. I'm just going to take one whole onion and cut it into nice little strips. Once the onions are done, I'm just going to give the garlic a nice smash and then a rough chop, kind of like mincing it. Bigger chunks of garlic is fine. Then I'm going to do the same to the ginger. Peeling and cutting our carrots into nice little medallions. Doing the same with celery. You could cut it even finer than that. Then I'm going to start to dig the seeds out of the kombucha. You can save those and roast it. And then you can watch me struggle to cut this pumpkin. It's pretty thick. You have to apply a little bit of pressure. Be very careful when you do this. Now I'm going to do
The wing beans, first I cut off the tips if there's any left from where it hangs onto the plant itself. And then I'm just also going to cut my eggplant into medallions as well.
So now that all my veggies are chopped, I'm going to go ahead and put some oil in the pot and then get to gissaing just the garlic, the onions, the ginger, and then eventually after a few minutes, I'm going to put some celery and some carrots. So let's get started. Okay, once the oil is nice and ready, we're going to go ahead and start to put in our garlic and then our ginger. And then we can go ahead and put in our onion. So all of our aromatics are going in the pot. I'm gonna get another spoon and break it all up once it's in there. This is just getting it off my prep plate first. So letting all of those flavors start to simmer in the oil and release. After a few minutes at medium heat, we're gonna go ahead and add our celery and carrots in, and you'll know when because the onions will be a little bit soft.
So a quick tip I learned from my mom was to boil the water for the stock separately and then empty my bouillon in there, so that when I'm ready to pour it in with the rest of the veggies, it's nice and hot. So now I'm just starting with the kabocha because it's the thickest vegetable that I have and I want it to be fully cooked by the time I finish my soup.
Now that we've let the kabocha sit in the pot for at least 10 minutes, we're ready to add our broth.
So now I'm just going to add in the pre-made broth that we have. I ended up adding about 1.5 cups more than this, so just pay attention to the consistency and add or take away where you need.
Now that we've let the kabocha and the broth and everything else simmer for at least 10 minutes, we're ready to go ahead and add our soft vegetables. Here we have some eggplant, some wing beans, some shiitake mushrooms, that's all I had left, and a little bit of pumpkin tips from our backyard. We're going to go ahead and throw that all in at the same time. Just let that get into the pot and get to know the broth. Making sure everything's submerged under the water. We'll go ahead and just let that go. Alright, so now that our veggies are nice and soft, we can go ahead and season our kadu to our taste. So adding salt, pepper, any other kinds of aromatics or leaves if you'd like. So cilantro you could add, or even basil or bay leaf. Another thing you could add is any other kind of veggies that you have. So kadu is a really open and broad concept. You can pretty much use anything that you have in your garden, anything that you have in your fridge to make kadu. It doesn't have to be the ingredients that I have here. On another day, I might like to add some diced tomatoes or some coconut milk at the end. This is a very versatile dish that you can tailor to what you like to eat. Just a little shake of salt. And then we're gonna stir it and taste and keep stirring it and tasting until it tastes right. And of course, a little bit of black pepper. I'm gonna keep it simple because I like to eat kadu with doni and donansi or finadani. So having the broth and the soup be kind of not overwhelming is kind of like my sweet spot. So I'm just gonna let that all go in there and give it a nice taste. With my tasting spoon. It's perfect.
So here I'm just plating my bowl of kadu. You can also keep the rice separate. A lot of people like to eat their kadu in 2 different bowls, but I was raised in a family where we put it all in one. I like to get my rice nice and soaked in the broth. And so here I have my kadu and I plated it with a bowl of finadeni. You can add on any kind of other seasonings you like, maybe sriracha, maybe Tabasco. This is a really, really delicious comfort food that brings me so much happiness and like a sense of home when I eat it, no matter where I am. Kadu is such an important staple food in my life, and I hope that you try this recipe and really enjoy it yourself. Please let me know if you like it, if you do, and thank you for watching.
If you want to check out more recipes, make sure you go to MicronesiaClimateChangeAlliance.com and check out where to download our PDFs. Or if you want to go in person, you can get them at Payless supermarkets. at their locations. And make sure to follow us on Instagram and on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. We love seeing questions and we love seeing the conversations in the comments. Thank you so much for coming back to my kitchen, and I'll see you next time. Adios.